Yeah, I'm ready. Just give me a second. Well, welcome. We're going to do a little bit of an overview of everything that we think that you have to know for meet day. So how many people are doing the novice meet coming up? Okay, is anyone doing a meet other than novice? Okay, cool. So first time lifters, everyone, or second for you? Okay, I was gonna say, I recognize you. I know your face. Okay, so we will go through everything that you need to know, or at least everything that we think that you need to know. And if you have questions like, I don't know what flavor gummy bears that I need to bring on meet day, then you have everyone around here. So the three of us are refs, and these two have already taken their test to be a ref, and they've taken their written part. They'll take their practical next week, so they're almost refs. They're halfway to being refs. So you've got a lot of knowledge in this room to kind of catch each other and everything. So we're gonna go through kind of the beginning part of what you need to know now and need to make sure that you already have ordered in your possession or are borrowing from a friend already. So the three things that you have to compete are a singlet, a t-shirt, and knee-high socks. Those are the only three things that you have to, and shoes, some sort of shoe. Those are four things that you have to compete. Everything else is up to you. So if you like wearing a belt, wear a belt. If you like wearing knee sleeves, wear knee sleeves. But those are the only four things that you have to have on meet day. A t-shirt, a singlet, and knee-high socks and shoes. The t-shirt has to be just a plain t-shirt. It can't be like a compression shirt or I don't know, a mesh shirt. I don't know what other fancy shirts you would have, but it needs to be cotton, polyester, or some sort of cotton polyester blend.
He needs you to tell him.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to tell me.
Slide. So these are your must-have things. So singlet, long socks, plain cotton t-shirt, and it actually can be a polyester blend as well, or a polyester t-shirt as well, and athletic shoes. And then the nice to have are your knee sleeves, your wrist straps, and your belt. And then we'll go through, the next slide has all the specs for this singlet and everything. So singlet, these are kind of the three most common that we see, but it can be any sort of wrestling singlet that you bought off of Amazon. We do not have any sort of have-to-have brands, but these are kind of the three brands that you'll see the most is the SBD one, the A7 one, and the Titan one. They're easy, they're ranges. I was going to say they're inexpensive, but the SBD one is expensive. But they're ranges of prices. So next one. So I put up here the Ipf Approved Brands just in case, because if you have not yet bought your singlet and you're like, I don't know where to start, I don't know what does it look like, where to get it from, these are some of the most common ones. So the SBD, the Alico, the A7, Stoic is now getting very common with lifters as well. And then you have kind of the full list. We are no longer IPF anyway, so the IPF approval list does not matter for us. So the Virus is back. You can wear the Virus singlet. A lot of women prefer that one. The Asics, the Adidas, any plain wrestling singlet is fine. You can find them on Amazon for $10. You can buy them on SBD for $100, I think is what the nice singlet is. So it's kind of a range of whatever you would like. You cannot wear metal. It's a brand that was kicked out. I don't know how to say it. It's no longer approved. So if you're surfing on the metal site, get off that site because you can't wear that. So belt is probably one of the biggest questions that we get. The belt needs to be, Wes, do you still have your belt? You probably have yours. The belt has to be some sort of leather or pleather or something that's like nylon, but it needs to be a hard metal, or not metal.
This is my Stoic singlet too.
Oh, thank you. So this is what a singlet looks like. It needs to be shorts up to, I just took this test, 25 centimeters on the crotch. 30 centimeters, 25 centimeters on the crotch for the length. But if you buy any sort of singlet like this, it will work. So
The easiest is like a wrestling singlet. And if anyone did wrestling in high school and still has their singlet, then it's most of the time whatever you would use for that is going to be okay here.
Yeah. The belt cannot be more than 10 centimeters this way, and it can't be more than 13 millimeters this direction. And then if you want to know all the other specs, then I can tell you that. But it can be, this one's a lever belt. It can be either a lever belt or a prong belt. But that's the biggest thing. It cannot have padding on the inside. That's something that we've seen before. It can't have padding. If you've seen the bodybuilding, if you go to like a Globo gym, I don't know how many people go here versus Globo gyms, but sometimes you'll see bodybuilders wearing the ones with really thick padding. Those are not allowed. And then the other ones are the ones that like CrossFitters wear, the Velcro ones. Those aren't allowed either. It has to be this kind of leather, thick leather to it. I can leave it here while you're eating. Oh, and then we also get some questions about stickers and things like that. They're fine for this meat. I don't know why I just did that, sorry. They're fine for this meat, so you're fine on that. As long as it doesn't say like FU across it. It can't say that. So there's your two that aren't approved, the padded ones and then the Velcro ones. Okay, knee sleeves. Do you have those? Sorry. I brought my bag for that reason and then didn't bring it inside. Wow, you fancy, huh? Okay, so knee sleeves. These are probably two of the most common brands that you'll see are the SBDs and the Stoics. So the biggest thing is they cannot be more than 7 millimeters. Oh, thank you. They can't be more than 7 millimeters thick, but if you get any of the big name brand from Strength Shop, any of those, they're going to be to spec. If you heard the drama about Inzer ones, they are approved. So if you have heard, are they approved, are they not approved, whatever, Inzer ones are still approved. So SBDs and then the Stoics, same thing. You can see they're just as long as they're this kind of thing. Rebands, if you come from a CrossFit background, I started out with rebands. The only thing would be, Grayson, yours aren't approved. Yeah.
It happened during the meet. It happened before the meet. It got worse during the meet.
I'm glad I pulled them inside out. Thank you for demonstrating. These are not approved. So they can't have any sort of like big rip or holes or anything like that on them. Oh, Grayson.
I didn't do anything to them. It just happened.
What if I want to wear knee wraps?
You can wear knee wraps in the wraps division, except you don't have a wrap division, do you? Are you doing a wrap division for this one?
I mean, if somebody wanted to register for that, they could, but
Okay.
in general,
So knee wraps,
other than ours.
there are two kinds of knee wraps. One are the weightlifting knee wraps that you've probably seen weightlifters wear that are a little thinner and more pliable. And then there's the thicker ones that are powerlifting wraps. You can wear those, but only in the wraps division, and those can't have Velcro on them. So, but you can wear knee wraps if you want to, but only in the wraps division, not in the raw division. Do y'all know the difference between, if I say raw, wrap, equipped, do y'all know that, or do I need to? Okay, so there are three divisions. There's the raw division, which is probably what most everyone is gonna do, which is singlet knee sleeves, if you want knee sleeves. Then there's raw with wraps, which allows you to wear knee wraps that go around your knees, and they almost look like wrist wraps, but they go around your knees. And then there's equipped, which is fully, you wear a suit, you wear knee wraps, you wear everything for that. But probably most, is anyone in here planning on doing wraps? Okay. Next. So these are the IPF approved brands. Once again, you don't need the IPF approved brands. This is just a starting point for you to look at if you haven't gotten any knee sleeves yet. So SBD, Alico, you saw the Stoics and the SBDs, Rebands, and then there's a bunch of other ones that that other people may use. That those other people may use. Yeah, so that's the knee sleeve thing. Okay, so I'll go through wrist strap. I must not have a slide for wrist strap. Okay. So wrist straps, these are wrist straps. You can use these as well. This is the max length, I think. So some of you may have the ones that are like a little bit shorter than this, but this is the max length that they can be. It's 8 centimeters by, I forgot all of this as soon as I didn't need to anymore.
What? Sorry. I wonder what they're gonna watch. My money's on Encanto.
Oh. So it must be 1 meter if this is the max. It's 8 centimeters by 1 meter. So the only two things that you can have Velcro on are your wrist straps and your shoes. So if there's Velcro on anything else, then that is not approved. So wrist straps and shoes have Velcro. But yeah, these are wrist straps, SBD, same thing. SBD, Stoic, Rogue, any common, Titan, all of those are brands that you may look at. Okay, so this is what you're gonna need to know for meet day. And you can get rack heights today. We'll give you a chance to get your rack heights because everyone's doing the meet here. So you can actually lift.
We have some people that are not doing the meet, but for anyone that's doing the Upstate Classic here in 4 weeks, you'll be able to go ahead and get your rack heights today and save time to check in.
So rack heights, you just get them for squat and bench. You don't need rack heights for deadlift because you just pull it off the ground. But for squat, you're going to look at the rack height, so how high you need your rack to be able to unrack it. Anyway. And then in or out, which confuses a lot of first-time lifters. Chances are, if you don't know what those two things are, you want out. In happens for lifters who are either very tiny or very large. Tend to be the two reasons that you would want them in. There are some people, I've thought about doing it, but I know some people will put either one in or both in if they have that problem of anyone in here ever hit a rack on their way on their walkout. That may be another reason that you would want them in, but for most people, you just want them out. And then for bench, you're gonna do your rack height, how you unrack, and then your safeties. Are we auto setting safeties?
Yeah, we're going to be setting like a certain height for everyone, and then if you need to change it for any reason, like if you're a lot bigger than average, a lot smaller than average, then you may want to adjust the safety zone.
Yeah. So what you're looking for is basically if the bar drops for some reason, which we'll have spotters, and this is very, very rare because we have spotters, but if the bar drops for some reason, we want to make sure that it's not hitting your face, your neck. That's what the safeties are there for. They're a backup for the spotters. So sequence of lifting is something. Do y'all have questions about that piece of it? Okay, so when you get here on meet day, you will do a weigh-in. For this one, is it random or lot number? Random, okay. So you'll be randomly called up. So if you are cutting weight, which if this is your first meet, I greatly recommend you not do. But if for some reason you're cutting weight and you want to be at the front of the line, you can be at the front of the line. But you'll go in and you will get weighed in underwear or less. You have to be down to your underwear. And that's for a couple reasons. One is that's where we check your underwear. So a lot of people will come to equipment check and pull out their underwear and be like, see my underwear? I'm like, I really don't need to see that yet. So that's where we are looking at your underwear, make sure, because you can't use compressive underwear. For guys specifically, you can't use compressive underwear. And so underwear or less, you can weigh in naked if you want to.
Just as a note, because I have received this question from women before, it is in a private room. You are not weighing in like boxing where you're weighing in front of everybody. You're weighing in a private room on a scale with a referee.
Yeah.
Just so everybody
Same gender referee too. Yeah. Yeah. And then at that point, you also want to be prepared with your openers in kilos, not pounds. So you'll come to weigh-ins with your openers in hand in kilos. If you have a coach that's given them to you, then that's fine. Have them on your phone, whatever, but just be prepared to go ahead and give them at that point. You will sign off that you agree with the weight that they weighed you in at, and you'll sign off on your openers as well. Sequence of lifting, is it 2 flight, 3? Oh, you probably didn't know yet, do you?
2 flights.
2 flights, okay. So
We have 3 flights on both days.
3 flights.
Generally, you're going to have multiple flights at any meet that you do. For ours specifically, we have 3 flights on both days.
Yeah. So your flight is the group of lifters that you're going to be lifting with all day. We go, for this one, we have 3 flights. Sometimes you'll have 1 flight, sometimes you'll have 4 flights, and everything in between. But for this one, you'll have 3. So you'll want to check your flight order because that's the group that you're going to be lifting with. So what we do is we do what's called the round system. And so you start with the lightest weight and go to the heaviest weight in your flight. So everyone will take their first attempt from lightest to heaviest weight, and then the order will reset with your second attempts. One of the things that can be confusing for first-time lifters is your order of lifting can change between first and second lift, and it can change between second and third lift. So I'll use Megan since she's another female. Let's say Megan and I are in the same flight. I opened up with 100 kilos. She opened up with 105. I should do that reverse. She opened with 100 so that I'm not making fun of you. I'll make fun of me instead of you. Megan opened with 100. I opened with 105. Megan made her opener. I missed my opener. And so I decided to repeat at 105. But Megan goes up to 110 because she made hers. So for the first flight, because she opened lighter for the first flight, she would have gone first. And then for the second round, not flight, second round, I would then go first. So Megan lifts 100, I lift 105, I missed mine, she goes first, I go second. And then the second round, I would go first at 105, she would go second at 110. Or 110, not 110.
1,010.
1,000, good job.
For a second attempt.
Yes. So that can sometimes be confusing. So you want to check. We will do everything on Lifting Cast, which y'all probably had to register through Lifting Cast anyway. So you're probably already familiar. But that will give you your order. So after that first flight is done with first, second, and third attempts, then we'll move on to the second flight, first, second, and third attempts. Does that make sense? Okay.
So is like watching on Lifting Cast the best way to keep updated with that?
Yeah, so at our meet specifically, in most meets that you're ever going to attend, there's going to be a monitor in the warm-up room to show you the flights as they move. So when you get done with every attempt, pretty much just stay close to that monitor so you can see if you've changed and where you're going to be in the flight, because it does change every single round, usually.
And honestly, I don't know that I have ever seen someone go from first in the lineup to like 10th in the lineup.
Usually it's by 1 or 2 people.
You're going to switch like 1 or 2 people. And so if you're still around Megan, if I were still around Megan, I would see, oh, it's her name up on the board now. I must be going next. So it's not like you're going to suddenly have 20 minutes between the lifts.
And if you look on Lifting Cast, there is a lot number assigned to each person. We're not using lot numbers for weigh-ins, but they still apply, especially during attempts. If you and someone else are putting in the same attempt, if their lot number is higher than yours, but previously your weight was higher, and so your weight was first, the first flight or the first round, and then you decide to go to the same weight, and they're doing the same weight, so now that person might be before you. If you guys are at the same weight, if their lot number is lower than yours. So sometimes it's even if the weight is the same as the other person, if your lot number is higher or lower, that can determine where you go in the flight too.
Yeah. Basically watch the board, wait until your name comes up before
Right.
you walk out there.
And always look for your name at a lot of meets. And that's why it's important to have a handler too, and we'll go over that later. But a lot of meets, if you're not paying attention, you'll walk out because you think that it's your turn, but it's not your turn. And then you might lift a weight that you didn't choose to lift. It does happen on occasion. Usually we catch it, but it does happen on occasion. And the last thing you want to do is lift a weight that you didn't want to and miss a weight and have to take a second attempt or have to take an extra attempt at the end. So always look at the monitor, look for your name to be called, and then go from there.
Yeah. All right, next. Attempt selection. So I do it this way. I know most coaches do this. I think all of y'all's coaches do this. I will have a sheet, an attempt selection sheet, including all my warm-ups for the day. So I can literally hand it to whoever is handling me and say, here, you just let me know when to lift the weights. But in those attempt selections, your opener is set. Like, you should know what you can triple on your bad day. Your boyfriend, girlfriend broke up with you. You didn't eat for 5 days. You're throwing up on the way.
It's too soon. It's too soon.
You should know like what that weight is, that you've hit it like ass to grass 5 times already. Now I'm picking on myself, it's fine. But yeah, so that's what your opening weight should be, and that should be set like a few days before, if not a week before. You should already know what that's gonna be. Your second attempt, what I do is I do a 2A and a 2B attempt. So 2A is like, man, that thing flew. It was so much faster than what I expected it to be. We're gonna go to 2A. I really want this number. 2B is gonna be, man, that was slow. That didn't feel good. My girlfriend did break up with me, and I was throwing up on the way to the platform, and so I'm gonna do 2B. And then the same thing for C as well. I will tell you, this is my personal opinion. I don't think that it's a controversial opinion, but this is my opinion. If you miss on your opener, retake it. Even if it was, you missed the rack command, even if it was a technical error, if you miss on your opener, just retake it. It'll be fine. For a couple reasons. One is, if your second is your second, it's your second for a reason. It wasn't your opener. Does that make sense? If your second had been an opener, you would have opened at that, right? So let's make sure to repeat that. There are very few instances where going up may be the right move, and probably not for your first meet. Like, just retake it. It's fine. The other thing is, like, nobody cares about your opener, and so that's not the time to do an ego lift on your opener. Make it easy.
And the whole purpose of making it not necessarily easy, but making it something that you're confident in that attempt, and that you're confident in that selection because it's something you've done a million times in training, is you want to secure one of your 3 lifts. On occasion, it happens that you miss all 3, and what happens when that happens is that you're disqualified from the meet. You bomb out, so you're not able to. You can still compete throughout the rest of the day, but you will not win anything. You will not finish like as part of the meet. You're just lifting at that point.
You don't get a total.
So your first attempt is something that you want to secure your spot in the meet, because you need to get one of your 3 attempts in order to make it to the next thing. So in order to go from squat to bench, you need to make at least one of your attempts. So that's why you want to choose something that you're confident in and that you've done in training a bajillion times, is because you need to be in the meet. And then after that, that's when you can make the attempts to hit more goals of what you want out of your squat. But your first one needs to be simple, it needs to be easy, so that you're in the competition. Okay?
I opened my first meet at 100 kilos just because I was like, I really want that beautiful number of 100 kilos. I made 2 attempts. That was it. So, you know, you want 3. Like, our goal is to go 9 for 9, right? Like, we want to make all of our lifts for the day. All right. Rules of performance. This probably is going to be the demo slides, right? Next slide. Squat. Okay, let's go ahead. Wes, are you going to do this for me?
I can.
Okay. We can move over here and we'll do, so if y'all want to turn your chairs. Oh, God. It's like that.
Good for you. I can't pull that thing out by myself.
Glad y'all got that fancy heavy bench for me. Yeah. Okay, so demonstration 1. Check your rack heights. Make sure they're the same. So, yeah, so that's what a rack height is, though. So his is 13, apparently. Okay. So, so Wes, so you're going to have a ref right here who says bar is loaded. You're also going to have a TC there that's going to say your bar is loaded. So Wes's bar is loaded. He approaches. You have 60 seconds at this point to get your start command. So you can take however much of that 60 seconds to do whatever your pre-lift ritual is. So whatever you did in the gym. If you dance, dance. If you take a deep breath, take a deep breath. But you have 60 seconds. So a couple of things that your refs are looking for before you get a squat command. You have to be somewhat upright. 45 degrees is kind of the angle. Can you bend over? Like just bend forward. So that's not going to get your start command, okay? Very rarely do people do that, but just that is something that we're waiting on. Your knees have to be locked, so unlock your knees. That won't get a start command. And then if you are someone like me that shifts like this, that's not going to get a start command. The good news is if you are someone who takes a second and does this and you do all your wiggle, we're not going to give you a start command. You're going to have that time. Once you receive a start command, so start. Don't do, that's not really depth. Can we do one at depth? Okay, that's better. You don't need to pause it.
I'll show you that.
We'll tell you when to show that. Okay, you can start command.
Start.
Please don't pause. Down.
Just. Okay, good job. Rack. So those are the two commands that you're going to get on squat. He has competed before, believe it or not. So you're going to get a start command and a rack command. After your start command, you at that point cannot unlock your knees unless you're going all the way down. So you can't unlock and then relock, right? You cannot shift your feet. You can't step. You can't, I guess those are the two big things. You can't move your feet. But you can take however amount of time after you get the squat command. You can take 5 minutes after that squat command. I don't recommend it, but you can take as much time as you need. So I think some people, including myself, you go, oh, I've got the command, so I need to go. Take your time. Go ahead and take your rebrace, take your breath, take your time, because you have however much time at that point to do it. Once again, let's not turn it into a heavy hold, because then you're probably not going to get your squat, but you have all the time you need. So the first infraction that you may see is what we call a red card. So within your infractions, so you have a red card or a red light or a white light, right? So white light's good, red light not good. Your goal is to get at least 2 white lights. 2 red lights is a no lift, 3 red lights, obviously a no lift. So within those kind of lights, you have 3 different lights that you can get. A red light, a blue light, or a yellow light. You don't necessarily need to remember all of this, but just for information purposes, we're going to go through what each of the 3 mean. So a red light is going to mean not to depth. When we look for depth, we're looking at the top of your hip joint right here goes below the top of your knee. So have one of your mean friends spot your depth before you get onto the platform. Not your nice friends who will tell you that a core squat is good. You want your mean friend to look at that. You did a good job. You were at depth. Good job. After you figured out you didn't know pause. So blue card, can you demonstrate a blue card, which is double bouncing? Yes. So once you go down, you go down. Once you go up, you go up. So this is not allowed. That's a blue card. The other thing that's a blue card is unlock your knees. Well, sorry, squat and then keep them unlocked. Also a blue card. So you need to still have your knees locked at the very top. Basically, you're just returning to your start position. So if you're lower than your start position, you're not going to get the rack command anyway. We're waiting for you to lock your knees out. And then rack. So yellow is anything else that may happen. So yellow will be if you missed a command. So if you started before the start command or if you rack before the rack command, That's a yellow card. Moving your feet is a yellow card. Can you do the slide? Because now I'm forgetting all the squat infractions. If you fail the lift, if you make contact with, if your spotters touch your bar too early, then you get a relift. But if you use your legs to help you, like if you bounced off your legs and rebounded, which I've never seen happen, but that is an infraction. Dropping or dumping the bar, that's what I forgot. You are not allowed to, this is not CrossFit, you do not drop the bar, you do not dump the bar. We have spotters for that. Technically, we can eject you for that if it's an intentional dumping of the bar. Usually what I've seen happen is people get really excited and they're used to dumping it in the gym because you don't have spotters, you're used to the CrossFit style of like you dump the weight and jump. That's gonna get you a yellow card and a failed lift. But if you intentionally dump it and we can tell that you intentionally dumped it, that can be a reason for ejection.
To the best of your ability, stay with the bar. It's going to be safer for you and your spine and your neck. It's going to be safer for spotters and movers. So at any point, if you are unsure that you're going to make the lift, just as carefully as you can, start going back down and allow the spotters and movers to help you move it in. Do not drop the bar on them. Do not make it forward or back. Just stay with the bar, and the spotters and movers will do their job. They will. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, I'm not one of these, but it's a good tip. A lot of people just wait for the spotters to walk them back in instead of even having to listen for the rack command. So all you have to then listen to is the start command and just stand there and wait for them to walk you back in. So that's an option as well. I'm too nervous to do that. I'm always like, rack, okay, let's go. But yeah. All right, so bench. Oh, now I gotta lift that thing again. Right.
I have one thing. So before you start your squat, you have a minute. So don't rush out there unless you have to. If you're at like 10 seconds, run out there till you start. So you have a minute. You have a minute to get started. So normally I don't walk out there. So just take your time. Treat it like a
Yep.
It can feel really aggressive on your first, especially your very first attempt, your very first week. The headers doing this and they go squat really loud. You have to like go down as soon as they say it. You don't. It feels like you have to, but you don't. You have, once you get the start command, do whatever you need to take that time. Take that time like you have time.
Yeah. Yeah, just do whatever ritual it is. And the other tip that I've heard from people when you're talking about the shifting of the feet after, like once again, like I'm one who I do that number, right? And some of you may do that too. So one of the tips I've heard is to keep your head down until you're ready and then look up at the head ref, because that kind of signals to them, yeah, I'm actually ready to go.
One more thing. Don't be scared to ask the ref. It's convenient in the car or the government. Like, go up directly after this and ask what happened.
Nicely, but yeah.
I've seen people go on a lot of meets because they don't ask and they continue to get 2 red lights on every single lift. So after that first one, make sure you don't ask the ref, hey, what did I miss? What occurred so that I can fix it.
And I'd say even if you're pretty sure you know, because like my last meet, I beat a command. I still asked just to make sure that was what they saw too. Like I was like, oh yeah, I beat a command, and then I was like, let me just make sure, because maybe they saw my foot shifted or whatever, and then that's something that I need to know for my next lift. So I'd say, once again, be nice about it and be quick about it, because you've got another lifter behind you. But it's not a problem to lean over to your ref and say, hey, would you give me that rep for?
And I will say at our meet specifically, I cannot speak for other meet directors and other meets, but at our meet we will have charts at the score table, and it will show the different cards and what they mean. And so if you get, we're pushing our referees at our meetings to use the flags so that you know exactly what flag to look for. And when you come to the score table, they'll be able to tell you this is what they saw based on the flag that they gave you. So even if maybe you forget to go ask the ref It's okay. It's okay. However, it is important to check the flag and then go to the table. The chart will be there to help you.
The most common light for squat is going to be your red card, which is depth. I mean, I may have gotten one last week. It's fine. Cool. Yay. Any other squat questions? Okay. Bench. This is a bench. So bench, same thing. You're going to hear, they're going to call bar is loaded, and then you have 60 seconds to get up. If you take a handoff, this is your time, and you do have a full minute, which feels fast, except it's not. You still have plenty of time to tell the person, hey, I really want a light handoff about right here. I'll count off on 3, or I count backwards. So I'll say 3, 2, 1, and then lift it off. Some people will say, I take a big breath, lift it off. But that's your chance to calmly tell your lift-off person, this is how I like my lift-offs. Or just say, nope, I don't need a lift-off, either way.
I love that Everybody's like, okay, let's go check whose car it is. Red Mustang.
Maybe someone next
For those on the live stream, we have a car alarm going off.
Not it. Okay, so your bar is loaded. Go ahead and set up. Oh, if you want me to. Do you
I will say from a lift-off perspective before you even get started, because it is, you can have one or not have one, that's your choice. You will have to tell the handoff person every single time exactly what you want.
Yes.
They're not gonna remember what you want. Like if you're like on 1, that's when you give me a lift-off. That person is like potentially 14 other people on a flight or 13 other people on a flight. There's no way they're gonna remember exactly what you want.
Yep.
Tell them where you want it placed.
Yeah.
Specifically.
If you're using a lift-off, be as specific as you can. Be like, on 1, guide it to my chest right above my, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, be as specific as you can, and they will try to help you to the best of their ability.
And to Megan's point, like at my meet last week, I did do the whole, just like last time. Last time was perfect. Well, he didn't remember. And so I got dumped on me because he did it like the last person they did before, not like I want it. So it is important to go ahead and take that time every time because they're not going to remember you. I mean, they may remember you. They're not going to remember exactly how you like it. How do you like yours?
Me?
Yeah, I don't remember you.
So basically what I'm going to do is when I lift my butt, I'm going to set my lats and I will kind of do a little shimmy with my shoulders and then lift it on through. A little bit over my chest, not all the way over my chest.
Okay. I feel pressure now. I'm not very good.
That was a lot of instruction.
That
Good
was
for
a lot
him.
of instruction.
I usually don't. 1, 2, 3.
I didn't give it to him, but okay. So at this point, you're waiting for start command. I'm going to make you hold that for a while. I'm sorry. So we are looking to make sure that your feet, your butt, and your shoulder, and your head, your shoulders, your butt, yeah, your head, your shoulders, your butt, and your feet are all in contact with where they need to be in contact with. So feet on the ground, butt, shoulders, head are in contact with the bench. I've seen this from lifters, and they're wondering why they're not getting the command. So your foot has to be as flat as the shoe. You can go ahead and re-rack real quick. The shoe allows. Your shoes, so her shoes are a good example. Her foot is flat right now, even though her shoe is up off the ground at the toe. Does that make sense? So it's as flat as the shoe will allow. Yours kind of are good because they come up at the toe too. But if your foot is like this, well, my foot can go like this. That's not the shoe, that's my foot. So that's probably something that can throw people off, is that's what we're looking for. If you are someone, I set up with my butt in the air and then have the handoff and then set my butt, it's gonna take you a little bit longer to get the start command if you do that. For me, it's worth it because it hurts my shoulders otherwise, but just know that that's gonna take you a little longer to get that.
But that's why it's also good to train where you unrack and hold for a few seconds before you go down. Mm-hmm. So like if you're training for a meet, it's best to train that way so that on meet day, you're not sitting there like, okay, this is a lot harder than I thought because my arms are starting to shake because I'm not used to holding it. Like
train with a few seconds at the top before you go down. Just a good way to practice.
Okay, so go ahead. I'm not lifting off for you again. You don't need it.
Can you handle the bar, Wes?
Okay, so start. Okay, so we're waiting for the bar to be motionless. We're not going to wait this long, promise. But the bar needs to be motionless. So can you bounce on your chest a little bit? If you're doing that, it's going to take you 1.5 seconds to get a press command. It has to be motionless on your chest. It also cannot touch your belt if you wear a belt. Very uncommon with raw lifters to see that, but I just want to mention that in case that's something you may have. Can you go to the top again? Sorry. Just press out, press it. So we're watching to make sure your elbows are also completely locked out before you get the start command. So those are kind of we're making sure everything's flat before you get the start command and that your elbows are completely locked out. You can go ahead and re-rack it so you're not sitting. Your finger, your pointer finger, your index finger has to be covering these, if you're a wide grip person, your pointer finger needs to be covering this ring. You can go anywhere in between these two rings, but your pointer finger, that's what we're looking for, is your pointer finger covering the ring.
As in, that's the widest point you're allowed to go.
You can go completely, you can go hands touching together. Wouldn't recommend it, but if that's the way you bitch and you like it and that's comfortable for you, more power to you. But you can't go any wider than your pointer finger on the rings. You can also do, do you want me to do it? So you can also be uneven. So you can go like this if that's how you like it. That's completely allowed, but you can't go any wider than this. All right, I'll have you demonstrate again. So the infractions, the red card for bench is super rare for raw lifters. Red card is if your bar doesn't touch your chest. Once again, this is super rare because you're also not going to get the press command if you're like this either. Blue card.
Or if it touches your belt.
Or if it touches your belt.
Which is the same thing. It's not touching your chest. So.
Right. So blue card is any sort of downward movement. So let's say you're struggling, and you go down. Yeah, that's going to get your blue card. You can press uneven. That is allowed, but the bar can't go down. The whole of the bar can't go down. So go ahead and press uneven. Yeah. I mean, you kind of went down on that side, but it's okay. Like that side didn't go down.
Usually that only happens at the very top of the lift. So like usually that last few inches is where one arm might lag behind. And that's just to say like it's allowed as long as the entire bar is not making a way back down.
Right.
It just has to remain going upwards.
Yeah, so if your right arm's going down, then the bar is also going down with it. So blue card is going to be downward movement and then failure to lock out at the top as well. So your elbows have to be completely locked out at the top. Yeah. This also may not get you a rack command, just FYI. Rack. So you have 3 commands in bench. You have start, press, rack. So can I see the yellow card? So yellow card, most common in bench, is going to be a yellow card because it's going to be a miscommand. That is probably the most common one in bench because you got 3 commands on this one. So a lot of times people jump the rack command. And let me tell you, there is nothing worse as a ref than seeing someone grind out a lift, getting their 3rd lift, and it was so beautiful and they fought so hard, and then they go, no. So wait for your rack command. That's another one that you can just wait for the spotters to put it back for you. Any change in the elected lifting position, this is something that a lot of people don't know. Bench is unique from the other 2 that you can slide your feet. Your coach slides his feet a lot, actually. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and press out and slide your feet and show them. It just can't pick up. You kind of picked it up, but it's okay. You're trying so hard to do it wrong. So you can slide your foot. So if you're someone that you use a lot of leg drive and your foot slides, that is perfectly fine. What you can't do is this. You can't pick it up and down.
Is heel coming up kind of lifting your foot?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So heel, what he asked was, for those on the live stream, does heel coming up count as lifting your foot? It does. So your foot still needs to maintain contact with the floor, but you can slide it if you're like grinding out and it keeps sliding, that's perfectly legal. Heaving is a yellow card. We had this debate the other day because someone said it should be a blue card, and I agree. So heaving, go ahead and show heaving.
It's excessive sinking.
You're really bad at doing things wrong.
So what that means is when you heave, it's essentially like you bring it to the chest. After you've been given the press command, it sinks lower, and so the bar moves down, and you're using your body to push.
Yeah.
Now, people will sink it often. That's a common thing. It's a common technique for bench, but it is a skill that takes a lot of practice to get good at because it's easy to heave, which is you get the press command, the bar moves down and then moves up. And that's the whole reason why it's a card, is because technically the bar is moving up and down.
Yeah. Yeah, so you will see people kind of bring it in you can bring it in as low as you want to do it before you get that press command, and then you can throw it up. What you can't do is kind of, after you get the press, almost like use your body as a springboard to bring it up. Contact with the bar, that's fine. Oh, contact with of the supports with your feet is not allowed either. So if you're someone who you set up and your feet are like this, you got to keep them clear of that support underneath the bench. Deliberate contact with the supports to make the lift easier. I don't know that I've ever seen someone actually do this. You're allowed to hit the rack on any of the 3 lifts. On 2 of the lifts, because deadlift, you don't have a rack.
The 2 lifts in which you are using the rack.
Yeah. You're allowed to hit it. That is not an infraction. If you were to use the, let's say you were going to use the safeties as a way to like spring off the safeties. Yeah, I don't know how you would do it to give you an advantage, but if you used it to give you an advantage, that's a red card. Yeah, and then everything else. We haven't mentioned it yet, but just kind of a blanket rule is that there isn't profanity on the platform. So if you're like someone who like gets really excited and you're like, F yeah, what's going to happen is we're going to be like, hey, chill on that. Don't do it again. But it's not allowed, just so you know.
Neither is like, if you're the type that needs someone to hit you on the back before you go out, that has to be behind the curtains. You can't do it. Once you're in view of the referees, you cannot do it.
So ammonia and slaps on the back are not allowed in view of the referee. Actually, the only thing that is allowed in view of the referee is adjusting your belt. So even your wrist straps, we're probably going to be lenient on that because we are at most local meets, but even your wrist straps have to be on before you get on the platform. The only thing that you can adjust once you're on the platform is your belt. So the other thing that we've seen before is your knee sleeves actually have to be over your knees. You can wear them for all 3 lifts. If you want to wear some knee sleeves on the bench, knee sleeves on deadlift, just because you're too lazy to take them off, fine. Like that is perfectly fine. You can wear any equipment that is approved on 1 lift is approved on all 3 lifts. You can wear them, but they have to be on your knees. You can't have them down on your shoes. Yeah. Your singlet can't touch your knee sleeves, and your socks can't touch your knee sleeves. As well. So that's kind of the question mark, is like, technically you can't wear knee sleeves on deadlift because you have to have knee socks that go up to your knee. So if your knee sleeve is over your knee and your knee sock is up to your knee, how are you making those not touch? We don't really know. But in theory, you could wear knee sleeves on deadlift. What are the other random rules like that? Is that anything? If you are someone you're like, walking up here and you're adjusting your wrist straps, we're going to ask for you to step off of the platform.
It's easy to forget your headphones too. I know some people like to wear watches. If you're wearing a wrist strap, you cannot wear a watch. If you are not wearing a wrist strap, you can technically wear a watch. You can wear the necklace, you can wear rings. Pretty much it's up to your comfort level with that. But they're just like odd things. The biggest thing is people will forget to take their headphones out before they come on the platform, and then we have to tell you to get off and you have to give them to somebody. So That's a common one is head bones.
Yeah, and your hair has to be pulled up. Yours does not. But if you have long hair, it needs to be pulled up for bench. That's so we can see and make sure that your head is staying in contact. So hair, wrist straps, your thumb loops have to be out of your wrist straps, or your thumb has to be out of your thumb loop on your wrist straps. So that hair, even knee sleeves touching your socks, if we don't catch it as refs before you actually get the command, we won't give you an infraction, we'll give you a warning. But still, you need to know about those things.
I will say for girls that like to do buns or pretty much put all their hair on top of their head, I have refed at a meet where a female had, she had dreads and she had them wrapped on top of her head. However, it was touching back here, and so her full head could not touch the bench, and we had to give her a warning that she had to take it and move it up. So it is important to make sure that the back of your head can touch the bench. You can wear a bun, you can wear a ponytail, you can pretty much wear whatever as long as the back of your head can fully touch the bench.
And that's another, like, along all those lines, the last one that I refed, I had like 5 guys who had long hair who came up, and none of them had their hair up. And I didn't notice until the one that lifted his head, and I couldn't give him a red light because I wasn't 100, because his hair was covering. So we can't give you a red light for things that we can't see. So if a spotter is blocking your depth, we can't see it, so we can't give you you can quarter squat. Don't make friends with, I'm not saying make friends with your spotters, but I'm saying we can't give you a red light for things that we can't see. So that was one where I was like, I think his head's up, but I can't see because of his hair. And so I asked him afterwards, I was like, hey, can you put your hair up? And it kind of threw him. So I just want to let you know, like, don't let stuff like that throw you. It's sometimes we discover things after you're already on the platform and we're like, oh yeah, we forgot to tell them to take their thumbs out of the thumb loops. It's not a big deal. It's not an infraction. It's on us to make sure that you're not doing that before you get up there.
Oh, speaking of thumbs, your thumb does have to be around the bar on bench only. That's the only lift where your thumb has to be around the bar.
Yeah.
And that's just so you don't die. That's ultimately it. Like, we don't want the bar slipping out of your hands.
Yeah, so if you squat like this, which a lot of guys do, that's perfectly fine. You can also deadlift like that. Personally, I don't understand how people do that, but you are allowed to do that. Go for it. If your grip is that strong that you don't need your thumb around the bar, teach me how to grip
Good
a bar.
for you.
Yeah. All right, deadlifts.
We'll move over here for deadlifts.
Okay.
It's probably easiest.
Oh, man, I was going to make him move the bench again. Yeah. You want to do blue or red?
I don't know if you want to use that bar. You might want to switch out bars.
Oh, yeah.
It's a weightlifting
It's
bar.
not Man, it's so heavy. Is that the one you, okay. Yeah, like how I stole his plate. Do you need clips, or does it matter? Probably not. Okay. So if you are someone who deadlifts under 75 kilos for your opener, it will still look like this. So if you use yellows, we don't use blocks or anything like that to lift it up. So just random information. All right, deadlifts. This is the only one that you only get one command. So you went from 2 commands to 3 commands, and now you're down to 1 command. So easy to remember. You would think that I hadn't missed one. Anyway, go ahead. So the ref's hand's going to be in the air when bar is loaded. You're going to lift it up. It's going to be that easy on your opener. They're going to say down. You're going to put it down. Your hands will remain in contact with the bar. So the infractions for deadlift. So red is going to be failure to lock out shoulders and knees. Someone just informed me the other day, your hips technically don't need to be locked out, but if you're someone who can not lock your knees and still have your shoulders back, you are amazing, because if your shoulders are back, your hips are probably going to be locked out. But your knees and your shoulders have to be straight and locked out. Blue card is going to be downward movement or hitching. Do downward movement first. Yeah. Usually it happens at the top. Yeah. Trying to get that last bit. So can you show hitching first? Yeah. I mean, that's kind of down. That's ramping. So ramping would be supporting the bar on your thighs and pulling it up and then using your thighs to lift it up. Very, very common in strongman. You'll see them kind of pull it and then pull their legs through and then up. But in powerlifting, that's not allowed. It has to go straight up, no supporting on your bar or on your thighs, and then no downward movement. Yellow card is everything else. So the most common infraction in deadlift is, besides up and down or hitching, any of those, or soft lockout, soft knees, dropping. So your hands have to stay in contact with the bar at all times. Yeah, yeah, that was a very nice drop. You can go as fast as you want to go. You can basically drop it as long as your hands are still in contact with the bar. So one of the things that I see a lot, actually I'll just show. So you'll see a lot of first-time lifters who do this. Because they're like, oh, I need to control the bar. Y'all, this is how I do it. Perfectly legal. Y'all can do that. Your hands just have to be in contact with the bar. Don't hurt your back when you do it. That kind of hurt.
Unintentionally, let's say, none of us are going to do it, but let's say that you are essentially failing the lift on the way up, you lose grip on the way up. Sometimes it will accidentally fall out of your hands. You will get a light for it, but like you're not going to be disqualified for it. If it like is falling, if it just falls out of your hands, out of grip, I mean, we've all done it at least once, whether in training or in competition. However, if it is purposeful, that's another option for us to disqualify you from the meet. So if you drop it and it looks like it's on purpose, like you're at the top and you're like, I got it, and you just like drop it, that's a disqualification from the meet.
Yeah. If yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that anyone's ever done that, but yeah, we know a couple. The stepping backwards and forwards. So miscommands is also very common on all the lifts. It's the easiest on deadlift, right, because you only have one. So stepping backward and forward, you lose balance and you go like that, that's going to be a red light. Deadlift is a little different, kind of like squat. You can move your feet. Deadlift, you can lift your toes up off the ground as long as your feet go back exactly where they were. So it's the opposite of bench. So bench, you can slide your feet as long as you don't pick them up. Deadlift, you can move them up off the ground, but you can't do this. Or I saw a lifter recently do like this kind of thing at the end of theirs because they were pulling, they were trying to get it. You can, if you're sumo and you're like way wide out here, once you get the down command, you can do this. As long as you've gotten the down command, you can move your feet in so that you don't squish your toes, and please do. Any questions on that? Anything I'm missing?
The only command is down.
Right. Only command is down.
A lot of the time, especially in novice meets or novice lifters at meets, they will sit there because the ref's hand is up like it always is for all the other lifts, and so you're sitting there like waiting for them to tell you to go. Mm-hmm. They're not going to tell you to go. You go whenever you want. You have a minute to get the down command. So it's different than all the other ones. The other ones you have a minute to get the start command. This one you have a minute to get the down command.
You have a minute to start the lift. You have a minute to make a bona fide attempt off the ground. Okay. Yeah. Use the same bar for all three lifts. Yep. The other thing, while we're talking about bona fide starts, you can come up, do this, but as soon as you do that and make a start, you've started your lift, so you can't go back down after that. As soon as the bar, yeah, it's a bona fide, yeah, we'll say, yeah.
To answer the question about the bar specifically, yeah, it'll be the same bar for all 3 lifts. USPA is pretty much the only federation that will do different bars for different lifts. We will use an Ohio power bar or a power bar with center knurling for all 3 lifts. It's going to be the same bar across the board. The only time that's different is if it's a youth lifter and they have the opportunity to use a lighter weight bar. It's a youth bar specifically. There are no youth lifters at the meet that we have in April, but at youth events, they tend to have youth bars specific for youth lifters.
And that's for someone 8 to 13. Is it youth lift? No,
14. It's 14.
8 to 10, right?
No.
It is 13? Okay. I just took that test. It's fine.
We're running a youth meet, so we had to check.
Trying to think other. So baby powder, if you want to use baby powder, you can.
Does anybody know why you use baby powder versus chalk on like your legs? Right. So a lot of people who don't know, they'll see white stuff on people's legs. Like, oh, it's chalk. I'm just going to put chalk all over my legs. Chalk is going to make that a lot worse.
Don't do that.
Baby powder allows the bar to move smoother up your legs. It'll keep it from getting like stuck on your skin. And then chalk is for your hands. At a meet, we do not recommend putting on your own baby powder. Please have another coach or handler do it for you so that you are not mixing chalk and baby powder on your hands and then you're on the bar and the bar's slippery on your hands. Have someone else put the baby powder on for you. And no matter where you are, no matter what meet you do, whether it's ours or someone else's, usually they're going to have you put baby powder on outside. They might have a designated spot inside for it, but always do the kind thing and go outside and put it on because that stuff spreads like wildfire. It will go everywhere.
Yeah, so what you want someone to put it on with your feet up and don't step in the baby powder because then your feet are, especially if you're sumo, then your feet are going to slide. And then the other thing, don't touch your legs once you've put it on. Just don't touch them. Don't.
People do it.
Yeah, if you get high, don't do that before deadlift. Don't do it. Don't do it. So for all 3 lifts, you can use chalk for anything that you want to use chalk for other than the bottom of your shoes. You can't put chalk on the bottom of your shoes. The only thing that can go on the bottom of your shoes is a spray of water. And then baby powder can be used. Some people chalk their butts on bench. It's not really the smartest thing to do because then we can see your butt more clearly. And like, there are some things that you want the refs to see more clearly. Your butt being on or off is probably not the one. Yeah.
I have a question. Why would I want to use a spray of water on the bottom of my feet?
I don't know. Why would you?
So if anybody's ever played sports, basketball, volleyball, something where you're on a gym court, the dust and the dirt that settles on the ground can make your shoes really slick. So when you spray water, it keeps your shoes from sliding on that dust. So typically at a meet, there's going to be baby powder on the floor. There's going to be chalk everywhere. So having a little bit of spray of water, some people will do that to keep from slipping so that they're not sliding on baby powder on the floor on the deadlift platform. Specifically sumo, that's where that would happen.
Yeah.
Because your feet are so wide.
Trying to think of any other random. So we already talked about the only thing that can be done in view of the audience is adjusting your belt. No back slaps, no ammonia, no wrist straps on the platform. All that has to be done before you get on the platform. Knee sleeves have to be up before you get on the platform. I think that's all the random rules. So do y'all have questions for what we've talked about so far? And then we're going to go through just general meet day, like how we kind of prepare to give you kind of tips and tricks, and you'll learn.
Are the racks like standard everywhere? So if I have rack height, so I don't have to do it somewhere else?
The most common one is going to be an ER rack, but the Rogue and the TSS are kind of your other 2 options that you may have at a meet. So a lot of us keep in our notes on our phone what our rack heights are for the TSS, for the Rogue, for the ER rack. But yeah, so I will say they're standard from, you're using a Rogue rack at this meet. So if you use a Rogue rack again, you can save those rack heights and they'll be the same for your next one. One little caveat for that is as you grow as a lifter, sometimes your own rack height, like how you like your rack changes. So when I first started lifting, my bench rack height was 13. It's now 9. That's a big difference. So you want to kind of check for an ER rack. So you kind of want to check it as you go along anyway. But, I lift on an ER rack once a week, and so I don't even bother to check when I go. I say, oh, it's an ER rack. Here's your rack height for that.
I just recently changed my rack height on squats.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You want to mind when you get your rack heights, you're going to see on squats and bench. And if you were doing rack heights for squats and you squat shoes, you want to do
Yeah.
rack heights with your squat shoes.
Yes.
Yeah. You never want to be like, you never want to go into getting your rack heights done and you go in with like slides because you're here just to check in, right? Like for squats, you're going to have, if you're using lifters, you have an extra 1, 2, 3 inches on your heel. That's going to elevate the bar by 3, 4 notches. So always important, bring the shoes you're going to compete in to rack heights and wear them for your rack heights. For bench, it doesn't really matter as much because I mean, I would still wear them just so that you're comfortable and you know how it feels. But like squat is the more particular one because once weight's on the bar, it's going to be different. It's going to sink into your shoulders different, and you might want more clearance than what you gave yourself.
Yeah.
At any point, you can change your rack height after you do an attempt. Let's say you do your first attempt squat, and you're like, okay, that squat rack height was like way too high. So you go over to the table and you give them a new rack height. You can do that at the score table. That is allowed. You just might not be able to change it on the day depending on how much time you have in that attempt left. So let's say you walk out there and there's 30 seconds left on the clock, right? Because you were called to the platform. And you go walk over and you think that the rack height, oh God, that's 2 notches too high. They can change it right then and there for you, but that's eating into your time on the clock because you put in that rack height. That was your responsibility, but it's also your responsibility to change it after. So if they change it on the platform and you did it for that rack height, that attempt, it is your responsibility to go to the score table and tell them what the new rack height is, and it'll automatically apply to the next lift. If you don't change it, they don't know what you put on the rack height, so it's your job to tell them. But you can change it between attempts if you need.
And you can re-rack, like if you get unracked and you're like, man, this isn't right, you can re-rack and have them adjust it. But like she said, it's going to count against your time. Now, a minute is a good amount of time to have them adjust it, but just be aware that it's going to count into your time.
How about elevating your feet on the bench? Will it let you elevate your feet?
I'm sorry.
On your bench press, will it let you elevate your feet?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can have blocks. That's a good question. So you can have blocks up to 30 centimeters under your feet.
Yeah. I would train with them though, so if you plan to use blocks at a meet, I would train with them because you don't want on the day to suddenly have an extra 30. Right. Yeah, generally the competition height is the same as far as like where the bottom of the bench is to the floor, but for our meet specifically, we're using a fat pad, so the pad itself is a lot thicker, so it can feel different under your body. So yeah, you can use blocks. Some people, this is specific to like shorter athletes tend to use them, but yes, you can use them. You just have to tell them to put them on your rack heights because we'll put them in the computer and then the spotters and loaders know to bring the blocks out for your attempt. If you don't put blocks in your rack heights, then we won't know to get them out. Correct. Yep. It's the height of the actual pad, so it makes it feel like, because your hips can't go quite as low as they can on this flatter bench. So it's the pad itself. So yeah, it is different. Any other questions?
You can go through kind of meet day, our kind of recommendations. You have like probably 20 years combined experience of meets at different levels, right? We'll say something like that. We'll guesstimate, sure, 20 years. So we'll give you kind of our tips and tricks for meet day. So for me, I pack everything that I need for meet day for equipment check in one bag and just hand the bag to the equipment check people and pull everything out and everything so that it's all there together. I'm 10 meets in now. I still do early equipment check, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm going to forget my knee sleeve, my wrist strap, something I'm going to forget, and I would rather forget it the night before than the morning of, right? So I still go through equipment check the night before and have everything in that bag ready to go. It's good to have another set of eyes look at stuff anyway and just make sure, hey, you know, these knee sleeves aren't SBD, they're some other brand, are these okay? For food, you don't want to change anything that you're used to eating on meet day. You want to eat stuff that you're used to, and it really needs to be carb heavy, fat low, and then a little bit of protein in there as well. So if you're someone, I have a hard time eating. Do you want to talk about that? Do you want to tell your story or?
Don't eat anything that you normally don't eat. Before the Arnold, I ate an all everything bagel, and I was in the trash can for about 5-10 minutes right before I squatted. So don't change anything. Keep it as the same as you can. If you eat oatmeal in the mornings, cram down a whole bunch of oatmeal. If you eat pancakes, after you weigh in. And if you're one of those people that you want to weigh in close to the actual weight that you weigh in at, ask them, can you go stand on the scale early and stand on the scale with the food you want to eat. And if you're under with the food that you want to eat, go ahead and eat that food. All right. But definitely, like she said, do not eat anything out of the ordinary because it will affect you on meet day. It'll either affect your lifts or you'll be in the trash can throwing up, or you will have the poops or whatever you want to call it. And specifically for your first meet, I would not do a water cut. I would keep it as the same as possible. Weigh in at whatever you want to weigh in at. If you're on macros and you're cutting down, just continue to cut down, but I would not water cut because you don't know how it's going to do your body. You want to experiment with that before you actually take the initiative to do a water cut.
So one of the questions that is asked a lot on Reddit, if you're on the powerlifting Reddit page, is can I change weight classes? Yes, whatever you weigh in at will be your weight class. Now I will say it can change some flights. It's potential to change some flights. So it's a nice thing to go ahead and email the meet directors and say, hey, I'm not gonna, originally I signed up as a 67.5 kilo lifter, but I had a lot of fun at, I guess it's St. Patrick's Day. I had so much fun at St. Patrick's Day that now I'm going to be a 100 kilo lifter. That's something that your meet directors need to know. I've seen someone miss weight by 2 weight classes before, and that can potentially, that can potentially change flights.
If you're doing our meet, I've written in an email a couple times talking about whatever weight class at this point, because you're a month out. So for those who are doing our meet in April, at this point you're a month out. At a month, you should have a pretty good idea of what your weight's going to be on the day. If you're an experienced cutter, which if you're a novice lifter, you should not be an experienced cutter. But if you are, you generally know I'm probably going to lose X amount on that day, so I'm probably going to weigh in at this amount. But if you are a month out and you're just generally, let's say you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to gain weight, whatever it is, at this point you should know where you'll be, and it's important to let the meet directors know so they know exactly how many medals to get. They know exactly how many people are competing in each weight class. You can change on the day. That's not against the rules. You can weigh in differently on the day than you thought. It just means that you might not be guaranteed a medal to place. You might not be guaranteed an award, essentially, for what you do on the day. So the more heads up you can give your meet directors, the better it's going to be for you so that you get rewarded for the things you're doing. He's had his hand up for 5 minutes.
What happens if I miss weight?
This is a local meet. You can go up or down in weight classes. If it is a national level meet, you will have to lift as a guest if you choose to lift.
For those that didn't pick it up on the live stream, you can weigh in whatever you weigh in at a local meet, and that's the weight class you're in. You can go up and down. At a national level meet, the weight class you are registered in is the weight class you have to compete in. If you do not make weight, you have to compete as a guest if you choose to, which means you do not qualify to win anything.
Yes, sir.
If I miss weight, can I come back and weigh in again later?
Once you have weighed in at your registered weight class or declared weight class, you can't reweigh. Now, let's say, I'll use myself as an example. I was trying to make 75 for this past meet. Let's say I came in and I weighed at 76, and I'm like, hey, I really would think that I can spit out 1 kilo, which has been done before. Not by me, but somebody I know. Maybe Wes needs to take this part. So you can reweigh. So let's say you do, seriously, you say, I think that I can make, weight in the next hour and a half, because you have an hour and a half, you have 90 minutes to weigh in. So you have from 2 hours before the start of the meet up to 30 minutes before the start of the meet to make weight. So if you come in at, let's say, 8 o'clock and you weigh 76 and you're trying to make 75, you have an hour and a half to spit out a kilo, which, like I said, has been done before. But if you come in and you weigh 74.8 and you're like, well, I heard this girl weighed in at 74.5 and I want to beat her, you can't re-weigh because you've already made weight as a 75. Makes sense?
For anyone who doesn't know what spitting is, when you have cut in powerlifting, one of the ways to deplete your body of fluids is to suck on a Jolly Rancher and spit and spit and spit until you are just getting every ounce of fluid out of your body. So when we're referring to spitting, that's what that is.
And if you need Jolly Ranchers, I have a lot now.
In the future, for your next meet, not this meet, for your next meet, if you wanted to get into that, choose a candy you don't like. It makes it easier.
And honestly, the reason that we tell y'all not to cut for your first meet is like, it's if you're spitting out a kilo, it's going to hit your lifts, period. We want you to have a good day with good lifts and something that you're proud of. And
normally, why I say not to cut is because most novice lifters don't know how to recomp.
yeah,
That's the bigger issue is that most novice lifters just don't know how to recomp. Immediately after I weigh in, I usually drink a gallon of water and some other stuff on top of that, just so that I can get my weight back up and so that I'm fully hydrated. I like to have clear pee before I go into bench press.
yeah.
That's my key to knowing if I'm hydrated or not.
And you're also going to build, if this is your first meet, you're going to gain weight. Like, you're going to gain up. You're not going to lose weight. And so, like my first meet, eating a full breakfast, like not really trying, I weighed in at 69. I had to cut to 75 for this last one. I look at pictures of myself at 69, I'm like, there's no way I could ever get to that weight again. There's no possible way. You're going to gain weight as you gain muscle. And so if you're starting already cutting, then that's not giving you any room to grow either. Yeah.
Yeah.
My squat took a 7.5 kilo lift.
Sometimes if you recomp really well and you're in like the third flight, so you have a lot longer, like Britton, if you, so like recomping is getting fluid and sodium and electrolytes back into your system, getting the food that you need to be like ready to go. So if you are, cutting a lot of water the day of, and you weigh in and you're one of the earlier weigh-ins, you get done, that's finished, you're in the third flight, that means you have an extra hour and a half, 2 hours than everybody else does to recomp. So you're in a better position than someone who's in flight A, who has literally 30 minutes to an hour to recomp. So it's a strategic thing, but for the sake of like a novice meet and the reason we're telling you not to, it's like you don't want anything extra stressful on your very first meet. Like the thing is already stressful enough. You're like, I gotta go in, I gotta listen to them say these words before I can do the lift, and I gotta make sure that I'm warming up at the right time and all these other things. Cutting is the last thing you wanna add as a stressor to the day.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest cutting until you're close to that national level or you're at that national level.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go into a meet at 121 and at 120 just because I just want to get in the meet. Usually practice at that point, just making sure I can get commands and whatever else. But as far as cutting while you're not at that national level, it's not worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, it does impede performance. It's a lot of mentality too. Specifically, and this is just my experience as a coach for females, it does play a lot on your mental health too, to be so focused on weight all the time. So don't do it until you have to, and when you do have to, make sure you have a coach or a nutritionist or somebody helping you through it so that they have a second pair of eyes on, and it's not just you having to think about how am I ever going to get to this weight that I'm trying to weigh in at.
Yes.
As a female lifter, are there any restrictions with pivoting products?
No. Nope.
That's actually specifically in the rule book that we don't check that.
And I will tell you from the female perspective, for the guys, this might sound really gross, okay? So
Earmuffs.
you might see, if you have watched any high-level meet, women tend to pee on squats and deadlifts. It does happen, just because of the way our anatomy is set up. We're not really at an advantage there when we brace really tight. I wear pads when I squat and deadlift because I don't want to pee on the platform. That's the last thing I want to do. That's embarrassing, but it does happen at really heavy weights. So you can wear a pad on the platform. You cannot wear the period underwear though. because that's highly compressive. They won't allow that. Any other questions?
Do any of the,
Ammonia is fine behind, as long as you're not on the platform. You have to do it behind. We'll have curtains here. Most meets tend to have a curtain. You have to do it behind the curtain. And I mentioned earlier the slapping on the back or anything like that. Like if you're a height person and you need to be slapped on the back, that has to be done behind the curtain. Caffeine is fine. We do drug tests for performance enhancement drugs. So like we're looking for steroids in the drug tests. So you can do caffeine on the USAPL website. There's a whole list of like approved like pre-workouts and stuff you can take. It takes, like honestly, there aren't a ton that are, well, I mean, I'm sure there are a ton. I don't know the full list, but most pre-workouts are safe. Caffeine is fine. We're not testing for caffeine. We're testing for performance enhancement.
I would save your monster for deadlifts though and not do it during squats. Like space out your caffeine, just as a pro tip. Like enough for you to live in squats, enough, whatever you need that's gonna keep you up all night for deads from personal experience.
And a pro tip for ammonia, if you use it regularly and you have a meet coming up, I would wean off of it for a little while, desensitize your body to it, because I don't know what the word is. So you want to wean off of it so that on the day it hits you harder than in training. If you're using it every single time you're doing a heavy lift, which is like once or twice a week, then you're not going to get the full benefit of the ammonia. It's not going to hit you the same way that it should. So I would take maybe a small break from it, wean off of it to one time a week or not at all until the meet day, just so that when you do use it, you're using it to its full advantage.
It's the same thing with pre-workout.
Same thing with pre-workout, yeah.
I usually take a scoop before my first squat, and I take a scoop before my first deadlift.
But he's been doing this for a while. If you're not used to pre-workout, that much pre-workout, don't do that.
Do y'all use mouth guards?
You can. You can. You can. Also, there's a new trend of like people putting their necklaces in their mouth. That's allowed too. It's controversial. A lot of people don't like it, but it's
legal.
allowed.
Yeah.
But yes, mouth guards are allowed. Brenton uses a mouth guard. A lot of people use a mouth guard.
You don't want to wear anything derogatory on anything on your singlet, belt, anything of that sort, because I got a rep that came. Well, it wasn't towards me, but he was telling the story about someone with the word tippy pants on the back of their head. Don't do anything of that sort. Make sure it's normal road, SBD, whatever. But if you have something personalized or customized, make sure it's not derogatory.
There was a whole, I'll tell you that whole story later because I was involved in that one. Funny that he should tell you that. So the real rule, you can only have your name on your belt. You can't have a nickname on your belt. But you can have like sponsor logos and stuff like that on your belt or cartoons or whatever.
And usually that's observed at national level meets. At local level, it tends to be a lot more lenient. Technically, it is the rule that you can't have those things on your belts, but at local level, it tends to be more lenient than at a national level or a state level. So at a state level, it's like the state championship. They'll be more strict about what's on your belt, what's on your shirt or whatever.
He's talking about Arnold, and I was the ref in question, so that's why I know that particular situation.
Can you give them the rule on tape?
Tape, it's two layers of medical tape. So if you're a hook gripper and you want to put tape on your thumbs because you don't like the feeling of death on your thumbs, you can do two layers of medical tape on your thumbs.
And that's the only place.
That's the only place.
That's for normal people that do hook grip on deadlift.
Yeah.
Know what hook grip is.
I mean, if you want to use it on squats, then you're allowed, but that's just, I don't know why you would want to. I'm trying to think of any other random tips, tricks. So if you were going to talk about handlers.
Yeah, so does anybody have a handler for meet day, know what a handler is? Does anybody know that? Kamisha's like, you're my handler, Megan. Okay, So we will talk about that specifically in a little bit. So handlers, a meet day handler is someone who is going to be there with you to load the bar during warm up, to help you select your attempts, to pretty much be the second pair of eyes on your lift, to be like, that looked like an 8, not a 7, so we're gonna change your attempt to this thing. This is the person that comes up with your attempt sheet with you. They know as much about your lifts before the meet day as possible, so that on the day they're gauging the speed of your lifts, they're gauging the intensity that it looked like it was. They're able to tell you when to start warming up, what you should be doing for those warm-ups. So it's not just, okay, get under the bar and start squatting. It's, okay, squat with the bar, we're gonna do one set of 6 or 7, and then it's gonna be 135 for a set of 3, and then it's 2, and then it's 1, 1, 1 until we get to your weight. So they'll tell you, they'll know exactly what time to start lifting, to start warming up, so that by the time it's your turn in the flight to go, you are ready to go. So their job is to time everything out.
And they're also looking at the task or the screen. Or
Correct.
whatever it may be to say, hey, you're 6 out currently, we're going to take this last warm up at 6 out or 5 out or whatever it may be.
Yeah, so for those on the live stream that didn't hear, they are primarily going to be responsible to make sure that they know where you are on the flight, so that all you have to do is do what they tell you. That is all you have to do. A handler is meant to be the meet day handler. It's meant to be there for every single step and to make it as seamless as possible, and that includes where you are in the flight, seeing if you've changed where your position is, being in charge of making the strategic attempt jumps. Maybe once you get to deadlifts and it's time to start competing with someone else, they're the person that's paying attention to that. So the handler does everything from selecting your attempts, helping you with warm up, and trying to make your meet day as easy as possible.
You can go without one.
You
I've
can.
done 2 meets without one. One was my very first meet, and one was not this past meet, but the meet before. This last meet, I used one. I literally was like, you just tell me when to lift the bar. And it does make your life easier, but you can do it without one, and you'll be fine if you don't have one, but it does make it a lot easier if you do have one.
They're also there for those ones.
Yeah.
My company's always there for those ones.
Some of us get angry on me.
But also, as in sometimes having your significant other as your handler is not always the best option. I can speak from experience that it's not always the best option. Both my partner and myself are very
in agreement on that.
Everything is very heightened on meet day, and so you can get really angry, and that person can take it really personally. So I don't suggest having your significant other or your partner as a handler for you. I would get a coach, someone who's coaching, or just someone that you lift with in the gym, so they can be tough love on you when you need it, but also give you the motivation and pep talks during the day if you need it, just the love when you need it. But I would not suggest your significant other unless they're comfortable giving you that tough love. But usually I would not suggest it. You have to be comfortable with that.
And maybe this is my bias, but I also would rather go without a handler than have a handler who doesn't know the sport personally.
That's also true.
I can load my plates for myself if push comes to shove, but having someone asking me questions all day about where I am in the order and what the order means, go away. I'll do it.
Yeah. And on a novice meet, it's your first or second time competing. You really don't want someone that doesn't know, because you don't know, right? You're not familiar with it entirely. You were at the seminar, but on the day it might feel a little bit different. You're like, oh, I don't remember this thing. So it's really important to have someone that does know, because if you're both confused and you're both lost, it makes it for a much harder day for you as the competitor. So choose someone who either knows the sport really well, or at least you two can brush up on it together as a team to do it. But I wouldn't go with someone who's never competed in powerlifting before.
Real quick, and maybe you're probably the best person in this room to talk about it. It is rare, but sometimes the refs make mistakes, and if the ref makes a mistake, you do get a relift. So,
Why am I the best person to?
I think you're the only person who's had one, right? You've had one too? No. You've never had one? I've never had one. I think you're the only person who's had one.
Oh, in competition. I thought you were talking about me making a call that was bad. I was I've never had to give someone a relift before.
You're the only person who's ever had it happen to you.
I will give you this scenario, and it has happened to me twice.
And I was the ref.
You were one of them, but you were not the responsible referee. Yeah. So it was bench, and there's a lot of things going on bench, and part of it was my own fault because my setup was really funky at the time. It's different now. So your butt has to be down before you can get the start command, right? So I had this weird setup where my butt was up really high and then it would kind of like dip down a little bit and then shoot up again before it went all the way back down. So it's kind of like it'd go up, halfway, up, and then down. The side refs, well, technically the first time it was just the head ref, gave the start command while my butt was still up in the air. I brought my butt down and then just proceeded with the lift because I'd already been given the start commands. And then he never gave me press command. So I'm sitting there like with the weight on my chest. And at that time, it's the heaviest weight I'd ever benched. And so I'm sitting here like, okay, what do I do? And I ended up getting it up because he never gave me the press command. But I ended up just pressing it up and racking it. And we went to the meet directors and we were like, okay, one, they gave me the wrong command information. He never gave me a rack command, never gave me a press command, but gave me the start command far too early. And the side refs on that one, I believe their hands were still up. They had not given the head ref the go-ahead. So I was able to get a relift. You can get a relift when it happens. You just have to be somewhat familiar with the rule book. Most of the time, the meet directors know the situation, how to do it. In my situation, they didn't. They didn't know how many minutes extra that I got. They didn't know where I could go again. They knew that it would be at the end of the flight, but they didn't know how many extra minutes I got because I was at the end of my flight. So for me, it was a weird situation. The second time it happened, it was the side refs gave the down command for me to go before, and then the head ref said start before my butt was down again. So I would have, if you know referees, and luckily you have quite a few of them in this room today to practice with, if you want your setup to be looked at, just so that you have that heads up. But generally, if the ref makes a mistake, it is within your right to get another lift. It usually is going to be pushed to the end of the flight, and depending on where you are at the end of the flight, will determine how many minutes that you get extra to recover.
And in terms of that, how many minutes and all that kind of thing, you don't really need to know that information. Like she said, and I was one of the refs, I was one of her side refs, and I'm sitting there going, this isn't right, but I don't know why it's not right, but I know it's not right. So she was in a specifically bad situation, but normally it's just your name's gonna pop up, they're gonna explain to you, okay, you're gonna be at the end of the flight, you're gonna get your relift, and then you'll go 3 out or whatever for your next one.
Yeah.
So I believe that how Megan was talking about, they gave her the start command, or the start command before her butt was down and she was ready and set to go. My second meet, on my first and second squat attempts, I was still getting adjusted to squat, and they gave me the squat command. So I talked to the ref before my third attempt about it, and they said to, because when I get set up, I keep my head down because I look at my feet and stuff, and they said, when you're ready, look at the ref. So if you're not ready yet, don't look at the head ref. If you're looking at them the whole time, then they're not really gonna know when you're ready to squat. So don't, I'm not saying look straight down the ground, but don't make eye contact with the head ref until you're ready to go, because they could give you the command too early and then ask you to re-rack it if they gave it to you too early. So
there is a command called replace. If you have not gotten the start command after 5 seconds, the head ref can ask you to replace, and they will explain to you why you're not getting the start command. We try not to call that because that adds to your time. But if you're standing there and your knees are unlocked and we're yelling at you, knees, 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 and you're still not hearing it, then I'm gonna call, as head ref, this is how I would do it. Then I'm gonna call the replace command, take the time to explain to you why you're not getting the start command, give you the chance to fix it, and go. So don't let that, so those two things are very rare, but I want you to be prepared for them in case they happen to you on meet day. So the replace is pretty rare. Most of the time we're gonna yell at you and you're gonna figure out, oh, my knees aren't locked, okay, got it. And then the relift, like we said, she's the only one who's ever gotten a relift.
And that does say quite a bit, being that there's, 6 of us over here, 7 of us. The fact that I'm the only one out of our collective experience does show how rare it is that it happens.
I mean, there's probably 80 meets worth of people in this room. And
but it does happen, so in the situation that it happens, you deserve a relift in the situation that a referee or a spotter and loader make a mistake. On occasion, the spotter and loader will touch the bar too quickly, and if it impacts the lift where you're not able to complete the lift, then you are allowed a relift in that situation as well. Not usually. At a local level meet, there's typically enough referees to be able to make that call, like, oh, we made the mistake, we're going to give you the relift. At a national level, they have what's called a jury, where you can go and submit like a formal, like, hey, I need a relift for whatever it is.
I can tell you that story too, because I got to be a part of that one.
Did you have a question?
I was gonna say, what if they misload my bar and I end up lifting something heavier than what is on the screen or what that I put in?
If you end up lifting something heavier than what you had asked for, you get to either accept that or get a relift. Personally, I'm going to accept the heavier weight, personally, but you either get to accept that or get a relift. Now, if it is loaded wrong on one side versus the other, you get the lower weight. It rounds down. So like if you've got a 2.5 on one side, and then it rounds down.
So on your weights, you can go by half kilos, like what jumps anything?
Oh, that's a great question. We didn't talk about that. So your jumps are 2.5 kilo increments. The only exception to that, which won't apply to this meet, is for American records. You can take smaller increments, but it's 2.5 kilo increment jumps for your lifts.
How can I set an American record?
You cannot set it at a local meet. You can only set it at a state or above. So state, regionals, nationals, Arnold. You can only set American records at those meets. Yes.
What about state records?
State records are automatic, and if you see that North Carolina state records are wrong, I'm working on them right now, I promise. Yeah, state records are automatic. You don't have to say anything. So American records, while you bring that up, I'll tell you just in case you do want to break one in the future. You can't set them at local meets, but you can set them at state meets. The difference is for state meets, you have to let the score table know before you break an American record. At a national meet, it's automatic, but still helpful if you let them know, but it is automatic at a national meet. But at a state meet, you do have to tell them in advance, hey, I'm breaking an American record, and that's so that we can have 3 national refs in there. Also, for total, you do have to have national level refs in the chair for all 3 lifts, for American records, not for state records.
Another point to make on that, at like a local level meet, if you are setting a state record and you want us to make a big deal out of it, because like, hey, I'm breaking a state record, like this is pretty cool, you can tell the score table and they'll add it to lifting cast, like they'll check it and they'll add it to lifting cast so it shows up on the screen. So like this will be the screen that we have, you know, what's going on the bar and the lifter and everything. It'll say state record attempt, and then the announcer can make a really big deal out of it and we can try to hype everybody up. So you can tell the table regardless if it's a state record. It'll count no matter what.
Right.
But like if you want us to make like a big deal out of it, just tell us, and we'll put it on there.
And you can chip American records. You cannot chip state records. I almost missed that question on my
Chip
test.
means 0.25,
0.5,
half kilo,
yeah.
1 kilo.
Right. So you can take smaller increments than the 2.5 on American records, but not on state records. That confused me when I first started. So I'm going to mention that one. I thought you raised your hand. You raised yours.
When I'm done with my deadlifts, am I allowed to leave?
No. So after you're done with deadlifts, we will pull certain people. So 10% of the pool of lifters minus, well, whatever. We won't go into that. 10% of the lifters will get drug tested. And so 2 things about that. One is you'll be pulled after deadlifts. But still, if someone hasn't pulled you, it's a good idea to check with your meet directors to make sure that you're not in that pool before you leave. The second thing is, I just forgot. Drug testing. You'll get pulled after deadlifts. Oh, it's not random, it's targeted. So just so you know, your chances are pretty high if you either all of a sudden put 100 kilos on your total in 2 months. Chances are you're probably going to get tested, or if you won the meet, chances are you're probably going to get tested. So, what? You've never gotten tested? I haven't.
Which is funny because he's on the out of meet testing list.
Same.
I've been tested 4 times.
I'm on the OMT too.
So there's in meet testing, which means you competed at the meet, you can get drug tested. And then people who are usually on the national level of competition, they are on what's called the out of meet testing list, which means that the state chair can show up at any point, no matter where you are, and say, you got to pee in this cup right now. And that's
we
what can
literally
happen.
have to tell them where we are at all times, and they don't know that I'm here.
Yeah, so like in his situation, he would have to let our state chairs know if he is going out of the country for any reason, because like, hey, I'm not going to be available from this time to this time, or if I'm traveling for work, I'm going at this place. It is his responsibility because he's on the list of out of meet testing. So they have to know that so that they can keep it on their records.
Listen, I have never gotten drug tested, and it's my dream, you know? Like, not that I want someone watching me pee, but I want to be so good that they're like, she must be on drugs.
Just so everybody knows how the drug testing thing works, specific to our meet, we're probably looking at the top 10%. So we're looking at the best males and females of the day. And we're going to take you into the bathroom, and you're going to pee in front of a referee of the same gender. They have to watch you pee in a cup. Yeah. It is what it is.
And you handle, so this was kind of, with all the IPF stuff last year, this was kind of a big question. You handle your own sample. We don't touch your pee.
We don't touch it. You're in charge of collecting it. You're in charge of distributing it into the different cups.
You sign the thing.
Yeah.
You hand it to, you seal it in the bag. You hand it to us. We don't touch it. We do not touch your pee. So.
And that will be done pretty much immediately. If you're doing our meet, we tend to grab you pretty much. You finish your third, we're over at the score table like, hey, you're getting drug tested. We'll follow you to get your ID, and then we go to the bathroom. It'll be pretty much immediate. Yeah. That's not the case for every meet, but that is what we are doing at ours.
And so women, just be prepared, because half of us have just peed already. But you have to pee, so you have to pee again. Just be prepared that you may be in there for a couple hours.
I had a meet one time where I got drug tested, and I just...
Okay, you brag.
No, I just came out of the bathroom. I just got done peeing, and they called me to this table, and I had to sit there with a gallon jug for like 45 minutes.
I have been in a bathroom with a woman for 2.5 hours waiting for her to pee. It is a thing. You get, stage fright. Someone's sitting there watching you pee. It is kind of intimidating. So, I mean, it does happen, and we're not going to judge you. We're with you until you fill up the cup. That's what it is.
And we really don't care. I know that it's creepy and awkward for everyone involved, but we're not. You're fine. You're fine. It's not.
And
it's like being a doctor. It's like whatever you need to do. We're fine.
And just for reiteration, this is specific to USAPL. USPA has drug tested and non-tested, so it's different in other federations than it is USAPL. We are specifically talking about USAPL.
Any other questions, comments, tips, advice from the,
Are there kilos in the warm room?
Yes, Ours will be. So we will have pound plates over here, but the entire warm-up room, what you see now, is the warm-up room. The only difference is that this rack will be moved out, so it will not be in the warm-up room, but these racks will be back here. It'll be kilos for these 3 stations, and then pounds on the far station.
And you'll have the kilo loading conversion charts in with you, or you can go ahead and download the app for them that will give you all the conversions and everything. My coach puts everything in kilos and pounds. It's easy enough to do the multiplier and, in Excel.
Yeah.
Just put it down and it's helpful.
There'll be a conversion sheet at the scores table as well when you want to enter your next attempts as well. So you won't have to worry about any issues. There will be a chart there that has pounds and kilos.
Yeah, and just to answer the question about kilos in the warm-up room, I would say it's probably not something that you would normally find at a local level meet. It's just in a gym. If you go to nationals, of course, they're going to have kilos and everything in the warm-up room. But typically at local meets, you're not going to find that. It's just going to be pound plates in the warm-up room.
Do you know what the setup in this room is going to be like?
So in this room, we're basically going to have a curtain going from the edge of this turf over here all the way across, and everything you see back here is going to be the warm-up room. So there should be plenty of space for everyone here. We've got 4 total racks. We'll have a bar at each station, 4 places to deadlift. So there should be plenty of space for everyone. The platform is going to be kind of out in the center here, right in the middle of the turf, facing this way, and then all the chairs are just going to be going back out from that
Yeah, so the majority of this equipment here will be moved, so that's not gonna be in the way. The only thing that won't be moved is the cable machine back there, the dumbbells, and the belt squat, but those are all against the wall, so they won't be in the way. But yeah, this will be entirely spectator. On the day, there will be a food truck out here on the other side of this door. Porta potties will be out there. And this turf will be primarily referee, score table, and the platform, and then all the black mats will be spectators.
Yeah, and if you guys are signed up for the meet that's here, you'll get
map.
an email with a map showing you where everything is, where you need to be, where the platform is, scoring table, all of that stuff, so you'll be able to reference that.
Yeah, and on the day for Novice Day, we will have a rules briefing, so we'll go over the basic rules of the day. We went through it in depth today. We'll go over a more summarized version on the day, and we'll also go over flow events. So like, this is where you enter, this is where you exit, this will be where the score table is, bathrooms, all that kind of stuff. Open day, if you were competing on open day, which I think we only have one person here that's on open day, you will not going over any of that. It's just gonna be on Novice Day.
You have 60 seconds to turn in your next attempt, and people get really excited and forget about that. Just want to mention that because we haven't mentioned that yet. So make sure after you leave, either your handler or you go straight to the score table. 60 seconds is not enough time to stand there. You get 30 seconds to leave the platform that is included in your 60 seconds to get to the score table. 60 seconds is not enough time to sit there and debate and watch videos and figure out how fast or how slow that was. It's enough time to go walk over, put your attempt in. So be prepared to say, oh, that felt like I have 5 more kilos. Oh, that felt like I had 25.
That's another reason why it's really important to have a coach or a handler. They have a pair of eyes on it. They know what it looked like and how it moved. They're able to and they might ask for your input, like, did that feel like the RPE that we wanted it to feel like or whatever. But that's why it's so good to have a handler, is that you don't have to worry about the time. You just go back into the warm-up room. That's all you gotta do, and the handler goes and handles your next attempt for you. Brenton.
You can't change an attempt other than deadlifts. Your deadlifts, you have 2 changes for your deadlift. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Let me go to openers. 3 minutes before your flight starts, you can change. You have 1 change of your opener. So if you get in the warm-up room and you're like, man, things are feeling heavy today, I need to back off my opener, 3 minutes before, you get 1 change of your opener. For your deadlift, you can change your deadlift twice. So that doesn't happen a lot, but where that happens is to change placement. You'll see people kind of change their deadlifts to try and beat one person. Or I saw someone do it at Arnold to throw another lifter off, which was cool. But that was fun to watch.
What happens if I don't go to the score table and put in my next attempt?
It is if you missed it, you repeat that weight. It automatically repeats that weight. If you got it, then it's an automatic increase of 2.5 kilos.
If you never showed up to the platform, it will stay the same. So as a situation, it happens, unfortunately. At the Georgia State meet, which is where I was a few weeks ago, there was a lifter who did not show up for their first attempt on the platform. They got called, they never showed up. The time just runs out. They'll let the whole minute go before they change so that the next lifter has time to get ready. So if you don't show up, that lift stays the same. We're not going to touch it. So you have a minute to change it from the end of your time on the platform, but if you never showed up to the platform, it's going to stay the same.
Yes, sir.
What happens if I don't want to take a second or third attempt?
Couple options. You can either go in and put an attempt in and let it time out, which is honestly what I would recommend, just to give your competitors the same amount of time. It's kind of a good sportsmanship thing. To give your competitors the same amount of time that they would have had you been lifting, because then we have to time out that lift. We load the bar, we time out the lift, and your competitors now get the minute that they would have gotten if you had been lifting. Or you can tell the score table, I don't want to take a second or third attempt, and the score table can zero it out and just skip you in the lineup. Those are your 2 options.
There are a lot of reasons why you might skip a second or third. So let's say, for instance, you were taking a token lift. A token lift is, let's say for squats, your knees have been bugging you, your back is in pain, you have an injury, whatever it is, but you still want to compete on the day because bench and deadlift are still going to be great. You've been training with those, but for whatever reason, squats just aren't there for you. So you can choose, if you didn't choose, in this situation, you could have choose push-pull, but let's say you still want to do full power, you can take a token lift, which is like, I just want to do the 1 attempt, get in the meet, and then I'm just going to scratch my second and third. Also could be, let's say you got your second attempt and it was the biggest grind of your life and there's no way you could go heavier. And there's no reason to repeat it because you got it. So you scratch your third attempt because you're like, I don't have any more in me, so I'm not going to do it, and you can scratch your third. So there are a few reasons why you could just like scratch those extra attempts. The goal is to go 9 for 9, but it's not always the case for everybody. The goal is to get all 3 attempts for all 3 lifts, but you can scratch them if you need to.
And you know, since I mentioned it's good sportsmanship to put in another attempt, I will say the thing that has come up recently in my last 2 meets that I just want to mention. The one exception to that is our poor spotters and loaders. If you are someone who is either extremely, like your weight is extremely more than the lifter before you or extremely lower than the lifter before you, it's nice to go ahead and scratch it out for our spotters and loaders. So let's say Brenton and I are back to back. I do not lift what Brenton lifts. Like, I don't know if that's obvious just from looking at us, but I don't lift what he lifts. So if all of a sudden the spotters and loaders have to go from, what do you squat? 4 plates?
God.
Okay. So that's 4 plates, right? 5 plates?
Well, no, it's not 5, it's 4, it's not.
So 4 plates, I squat 2 plates. If I go in and scratch, now the spotters and loaders aren't having to pull 2 red plates off and put them back on just to time out my lift, if that makes sense. So that's something to just keep in mind when you're saying, you know, like, let's be nice to our spotters and loaders. But for the most part, you want to go ahead and put in an attempt because that's nice to the people around you.
And more strategic-wise, if you take a second and it's super duper hard, I'm not taking a 2.5 kilo jump. I'm just going to scratch a third so that I can save it for deadlifts. But you'll get that more as you learn more in the sport. Is that, hey, I don't want to grind out a squat because, hey, I'm going to take this away from my deadlift.
Yeah.
You'd rather have that at the end of the day when you are jockeying for placing. So that's just my pro tip.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Say if your first attempt moves good, but you get redlighted or something, on your next attempt, do you have to lift the same weight, or can you go up in weight?
You do not have to. I would, so for squats in particular, if you miss on depth, please take it over again. I've seen way too many people bomb out because they decide to go up anyway and they still can't hit depth on the second one. But you can go up. I just would recommend not doing that unless you're really, really sure. I've had the exception from my coach before that I can move up if I miss a first because my second I've already hit in competition. So I know without a doubt that my second I can hit. We're building to the third. But that's, I think for novice lifters, you really want to repeat the first. Unless you're really, really certain of your second.
And not only to make yourself your spot in a meet, because we went over that a little earlier, securing your spot in the competition, but it's also, it's like, if you can't go back down. So
Yeah.
once you go up, you can't go back down. The only time that you can is on your third attempt deadlift. That's the only time that you get to change whether you go up or down. In squats and in bench, once you go up, you're there or you go higher. You don't get to go any lower. So it's like if you're missing on a technicality or you're missing on strength, but you think you have more in you, it's like, okay, well, secure what you had for your opener first because you don't get to go any lower. And the last thing you want to do is take a jump that you can't handle, and then now you're even more screwed than you were before.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
We'll be hanging out too, so if something occurs to you.
What about our USAPL membership? Do we have to have a card or something to go?
It's digital now.
Yeah. They'll email you. So when you fill out the form, the membership application, it's an application, but you're not really applying for anything. You're just going to get the card. They'll send you a PDF copy of your card. You can print that. You can just show us the digital copy. We don't need to see the physical copy. We just need to be able to see the card on your phone. But some people will get them printed or order like a special like card to have it. We just need to be able to see that you have one. And what'll happen is when we, as meet directors, when we put in all that stuff, we have to check to make sure that it's valid and active. So when you give us your number, we'll be able to know whether it's an active number or whether you just gave us a fake number. That's why we have to see the card so we can see the watermark and see the logo and everything so that we know it's from USAPL.
When you get it,
The USAPL
Your
membership card. Your USAPL membership card. So like the membership to compete.
For the federation.
For the federation. It's in an email that I sent you.
You have to pay the membership for the federation to compete on top of your entry fee.
Yeah, so basically, and this applies for every single federation that you might be able to compete with, USAPL, USPA.
RPS,
They require you to be a member of the federation to be able to compete in a sanctioned event. And what that goes to is it goes to covering like liability insurance for the federation, the cost of running, things like that. So it doesn't go to the meet director, it's just part of basically the membership that you have to be able to compete.
It is, yeah. So in each email, if you are a part of the meet that we are running here, each email you get, you also have the copies of the previous emails attached to the new email. So each one says update number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. I think we just sent out 3 2 weeks ago. So attached to that email are the previous emails in a PDF at the bottom, and there are links in there for your membership card, for equipment, like if you haven't bought your singlet yet, that's a bunch of singlets in there that you can look at, belts, wrist straps, that kind of thing. So it should be in the email. Just look for Upstate Classic updates.
When you do get your membership card, first of all, you can do a membership lookup if you lost it or never got it or whatever, and it'll email you again. I've done that like multiple times, mainly because I want my new one. But when you get it, screenshot it, save it to your favorites so it's right there. Or if that's easier for you, yeah. Have it somewhere. In other words, have it somewhere easily accessible, because I was sitting there in line last week going, it's in here somewhere. I just refed the other day.
I wouldn't sign up the day of, at least the night before, just because there's a lot of stuff going on, and the last thing you want is for whatever reason your phone to bug out the morning of,
Yeah.
It happens. There was one day I did buy my very first meet with USAPL. I bought it the morning of, and then for whatever reason it took them a while to send it to me. Like for whatever reason there was a delay with my email or something. It took an extra like 45 minutes for me to get the email, and so I was sitting there at check-in like, oh my god, I gotta check in. Because check-in only lasts technically, I think we're only doing check-in until weigh-ins start, but usually we're a little bit more lenient with novices. Usually it's like you have check-in the night before, and usually there's about 30 minutes to an hour of check-in the morning of the meet, and that's all the time that you get. Once weigh-in starts, it's kind of like the meat is of a gun, essentially. So I would do it the night before at a minimum, or like at a maximum the night before. Do it as early as you can, really. And it's good for the calendar year, so you're good for the rest of the year. You don't have to buy it every meet, just the...
And then it's good for
Yes.
next year.
If you were lucky enough to compete at the novice meet in November, we were like, don't buy it till November 1st, because then it goes for the full next year.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Random question. So you talked about possibly, skipping your second or third attempt due to like pain or injury or something like that. Does that affect your ability to medal, or?
As long as you've gotten your first attempt in.
Yeah. Technically you only need to go 3 for 9 to get a total, right? Like you only need to get your first squat, bench, and deadlift, which is why I always walk off a squat going, whew, okay, I got 1. That's all I needed. So technically you only need 1 of each. It's generally good practice to go as close to 9 for 9 as possible. I have never done it. Some other people have. I have never done it. This elusive 9 for 9, I've never done it.
Me neither. I'm always like 7 for 9 or 8 for 9.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I guess that's probably personal, but not close to your opener, do you think it's a really good?
That's very specific to the person. Generally, for me, start thinking like when you're warming up in your normal training sessions, what is usually the last weight between like your last warm up and what you think is your top set, and kind of think about what your normal jumps are. For me, they're bigger jumps at first, and then they get really small closer to. So like for me on meet day, let's say I want to open at 345 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilos. Let's say I want to open at 345 pounds. So that would be my last warm up would probably be 325. Personally, for me, that'd probably be my last one. So it's specific to the person, but you just start paying attention in your warm-ups, what kind of jumps you're making to get to that, so you kind of know whether you're handling yourself or you have a handler. They'll ask you for your warm-ups, so you guys can plan for them. But if you're handling yourself, just pay attention to what your last warm-up set is, usually, and what kind of jumps that you're making, so you know.
You just don't want to do anything different than you do in training.
Yeah. 6 or 7. You want to, again, it's got to be, we recommend, we recommend it's something, again, that you've done in training 500 times and that you know on a really bad day you could still get that lift. So for me, like specific to bench, at least most recently, the most like, consistent thing is 70 kilos for me. Like I'm consistently able to hit that number. So I know on meet day, at a minimum, on a good day or a bad day, 70 is there. And so you want to do something that's about a 6 or 7 RPE, something that you could do essentially as a warm-up at the very least.
And bench and squat, deadlifts, it's a little more consistent, right? But squat, because of depth, you especially want to go low because you don't know that, like you want to make sure, for me it's, can I ask to grass this? Like, is this something that I know, no matter how low that ref wants me to go, I can hit it. And then for bench, it's surprising how much longer pauses feel on meet day, even if they're not long.
Yeah, so like piggyback on that, you should practice that when you are training. 3-second pauses, 3 to 5 second holds at the top, that type of stuff. Waiting until you rack the bar. You want to practice that before meet day.
And that's one of those things, I mean, we all will do it for you either today or if you want to send us videos or whatever, if you train around here. Don't go for your nice friend to call commands for you. Go for your mean friend who's going to make you pause it for a minute. Seriously. So the nice thing is for someone to tell you you're bouncing the crap out of that bench. It's going to be a while before you get a press. Not, oh, it's fine, it'll be their meet day, and then all of a sudden it's meet day, and you're sitting there bouncing, and the ref's like, well, when you get done, I'm here. I'm ready for you when you get done. So that's the one thing, recommendation that I think probably all of us would give you is just make sure you have someone knowledgeable look at your lifts beforehand that goes, you're really going to get a slow press command from that, so be prepared to hold it for a while.
Yeah. And now that you guys know what the commands look like, you know what we're looking for, you know how long you're looking, at least 3 to 5 seconds at the top of each lift before you get a start command. Now granted, deadlift is different, we're just waiting for a down command. That's when you just hold at the top for a few extra seconds than you normally would. But now that you guys know what the refs are looking for and you know the commands, train with them. So like whether they're in your brain or you have someone telling them to, like pause at the top at the bench for 3 seconds before you go down, then pause for a couple seconds at the bottom, and then press and hold for another 3 seconds. I wouldn't do that for your high rep stuff, not personally. Just do it for like your singles and stuff, but start training with it so that you're more comfortable on meet day, because it is a different ball game. Yeah. If you're not used to it, that's suddenly, like you're used to being able to just unrack the bar and go straight down to your chest, pause for 3 seconds, and then go down. Not only for the sake of that way you don't miss a command, but that way it doesn't feel quite as shocking on the day to your body.
And I will say, like, we're kind of scaring you a little bit here. I will say I struggle with depth, and I bounce off of my chest, and I still can get my openers. So it's not like, we're trying to make you conscious but not scare you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if you're one of those self-handoff people on the bench, take a self-handoff.
Yeah.
Classic, I took handoffs, and they threw me out pretty bad. So from then on, I'm taking self-handoffs, no matter what level it is, national level, local level, just because that's what I'm used to. So if you're used to self-handoff, take a self-handoff.
Yeah, just try to mimic training and competition as close together as possible. Treat them the same. Because on meet day, you've got those pauses, you've got commands that you're not used to doing, so the more you train with them, the better it's going to be for you. Because I'll even say I've never had a depth problem on squats, but on meet day I'm terrified that I'm not going to hit depth. So I end up like doing my squats a little bit differently, like every single time routinely. I always end up getting in my head about it, and I've never had a problem with them in competition. In training. So always just train to the best you can to meet standards, so that on the day, at least for the next month, because you guys have 4 weeks out from the meet from today, start training with them as often as you can.
And I have been a ref for 2.5 years now, and I still send my videos to other refs and go, what would you call that?
Literally all of them do. He's sending his videos to everyone all the time. You're sending, Chris, he's one of our members. He's in Florida right now. He's competing in the Open. He's on spring break right now. He's still sending us like, hey, is this depth? So like send it to us. Like we don't mind, like PSB, we don't mind if you're like, hey, can you guys check our depth on this? Like, can you give me, you know, some feedback on my lockout on my knees for deadlift, whatever it is. Like we want to help you guys and we want you to be as comfortable and confident on meet day as possible. So we're happy to help in whatever way we can.
And as well, even with us checking, I would look at the squats the day before yours and just check and see the reps.
Yep. That's really good pro tip. That's a really good tip. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Cool. Like I said, we'll be around.
If you are competing at our meet, please play around with the rogue rack a little bit. Everybody gets a free day pass if you're competing for the Upstate Classic. Everyone gets a free pass to work out one day here to get comfortable with the rack because it is not a usual competition rack. The bench is really thick and the rack itself is really wide. So take the time to play with it if you want to.
It is very friendly to benchers though. So it'll be good.
The pad is an advantage. It feels like you're cheating, but you're not.
The pad, unfortunately, for those of us who benched on a rogue rack then switched to an ER in our meet, it is nice.
Cool. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank y'all.
Let us know if you